Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Neville on the Bible. I'm your host, Evelyn. Today, we're exploring the promise in Matthew 7, verse 7. Ask, and it will be given you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be open to you. It's a simple yet profound promise. Neville Goddard taught that this verse is not about outward pleading, but about inner belief and feeling. Neville has made a number of references to the inner belief and feeling in his 1951 radio lecture, Answered Prayer. He famously said, "Our prayers are answered if we assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and continue in that assumption." In other words, the secret is to feel and believe your desire is already done. He reminds us in his 1965 lecture, God's eternal law and his promise, that the true power of God is in you, your own wonderful human imagination. The world outside simply reflects your inner state. Today, we'll unpack Neville's insights on how ask, seek, knock works in practice. Neville emphasizes in his 1951 radio lecture, Answered Prayer, that prayer isn't empty wishing or reciting words. It's a mental act of faith. As he put it, prayer is the elevation of the mind to that which we seek. This is easily done by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. In practice, that means praying as if your desire is already granted, not hoping it will happen someday. He warned that simply willing or trying harder will backfire. Instead, we must surrender into the feeling of it done. In the same radio lecture, Answered Prayer, he even noted, if prayer brings no response, the fault lies generally in too much effort. So the key is not straining, but feeling the answer now. In short, when you ask in prayer, Neville teaches you must believe and feel you have already received it, only then it shall be yours. What do the words ask, seek, knock really mean? Neville explains in his book, the power of awareness, that Jesus was telling us to assume the consciousness of already having our desire. To ask is to imagine yourself already in possession of what you want. To seek and knock means to persist in that assumption until it hardens into reality. He even calls it brazen impudence, a shameless boldness, to keep feeling your wish fulfilled despite appearances. And it works. As he says, if you are shameless in assuming that you already have that which your senses deny, it shall be given unto you. Your desire shall be attained. In other words, when you ask in faith and never let go of the feeling of fulfillment, miracles happen. Neville reminds us in his 1951 radio lecture, Answered Prayer, that the secret of success is perseverance. Keep feeling the end, and the answer follows. A crucial point Neville makes in his 1965 lecture, God's eternal law and his promise, is that divine power dwells in your imagination. He states flatly, the power of God is in you, your own wonderful human imagination. Everything you see outside is a projection of your inner state. In fact, everyone in the world is simply responding to what is taking place in your own imagination. Thus, when you imagine and feel the end of your prayer, you're engaging that God power within. It's like writing a movie in your mind. The world just edits and shows it to you in real life. Neville likens Scripture to a divine script written by your own imagination. By living in the end, dwelling mentally in the fulfilled state, you activate the law of assumption. As he said in the same lecture, this is testing the promise. Come, prove me and see. The power of God is in you. Neville Goddard often showed that prayer and assumption are the same. For example, his book, The Law and the Promise, shares the letter of a young Arthur Murray dance instructor who desperately wanted his own studio. He writes that each night I assumed the feeling of my wish fulfilled by falling asleep already managing his own studio. To his surprise, a friend in Reno called after some days and offered him a partnership in a studio there. He repeated the exercise, imagining his boss congratulating him and offering a second studio. He reports that his nightly imaginal scenes soon materialized, almost word for word. In other words, by asking in his mind and seeking living as if the dream were real, with steady faith, the career he imagined became fact. In another story from his book, The Law and the Promise, Neville recounts a woman who used imagination to win the love of her life. After a perfect first date, she felt as if she was in her own home, as a married woman each night. She even twisted an imaginary wedding ring on her finger and repeated, "I really am Mrs. J," as she drifted off in this waking dream. She did this every night for a month. When she stuck with that assumption, persistence paid off. In November, he proposed. In January, we announced our engagement, and the following May we were married. Her story shows Neville's point. By asking through the imaginal act and persisting in that assumption, even impossible outcomes such as a wife's ring in a ringless situation became real. In his 1969 lecture, The Mystery of Imagination, Neville himself told of his brother-in-law, Sam, who faced a dead-end bank job. Neville instructed Sam to sleep each night feeling he'd had the most heavenly day in business, handling a huge investment portfolio. Sam even verbalized his vision. One evening, he told his wife he wanted to manage Rockefeller-sized funds. Then, 2 weeks later, it happened. The very day after he began this nightly practice, a family friend who handled the Rockefeller fortunes asked Sam to quit the bank and join me, managing a big portfolio. Neville sums it up. Sam dared to imagine himself returning from a job where everything was perfect. Then the offer came out of the blue. Here persistence again shows. Sam kept asking and knocking in his imagination until the physical opportunity arrived. Each of these real-life accounts mentioned in this video illustrates Neville's teaching on Matthew 7 verse 7, "Ask, and it shall be given." The individuals asked in their hearts. By assuming the wish fulfilled, they sought by living each day from the end, and they knocked by persisting night after night until reality changed to match their imaginal act. As Neville explains, God, or our own imagination, responds when we persist in assumption and refuse to take no for an answer. One more case from the book, The Power of Awareness, highlights the power of joint faith. A young Air Force couple were desperate to be stationed together in Florida. The wives urged them to assume the feeling of being in Florida, feeling warm breezes, smelling salt air, feeling sand underfoot. They did this together as an experiment of faith. Just 48 hours later, the husband received change of orders. He was to report immediately to Florida 14. And 5 days later, the wife boarded a train to join him. By imagining Florida as real, they effectively walked themselves there in the end. Now, how can you apply Matthew 7 verse 7 in your own life? Neville gives clear practical guidance in his 1951 radio lecture, The Answered Prayer. First, assume the feeling now. When you ask, do it in present tense. Make your prayer vivid and emotional. In Neville's words, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Feel gratitude and inner assurance as if your request is already granted. Second, use affirmative language. Speak and think of your desire as already real. I am healed, not I will be healed. This trains your subconscious to accept it. Third, visualize before sleep. The moments just before drifting off are powerful. Sit or lie quietly and imagine your answered prayer in detail. This impresses your subconscious deeply. Fourth, persist shamelessly. Even if circumstances seem unchanged, don't give up. As Neville said, the secret of success is perseverance. Keep knocking on your inner door by repeatedly dwelling in the fulfilled state. Fifth, don't look back. As Neville warns in his book, your faith is your fortune. Do not be a Lot's wife who looks back and becomes salted. Instead, keep your vision focused on the promised land, the thing desired. Avoid doubt and old fears. Once you have confidently seen your goal, don't revert to past worries. And sixth, act and speak as if done. Carry yourself from your fulfilled state. Neville teaches, claim yourself to be that which you desire to be and that you shall be. Expressions follow the impressions. Express gratitude in advance and conduct your life as though your prayer is answered. This aligns your whole being with the outcome. Following these steps ensures you truly ask, seek, and knock according to Neville's teachings, from the end, not the lack. Matthew 7 verse 7 is not just a nice thought. It's a fundamental law of consciousness. In Neville's words, if you are shameless in your impudence in assuming that you already have that which your senses deny, it shall be given unto you. Your desire shall be attained. For, in other words, when you ask, imagine, seek, persist, and knock, break through doubt, with complete faith, doors will open. We've seen from Neville's examples that this works. The promise gift comes in because the inner match of belief lights it. So next time you pray or set an intention, remember Neville's guidance. Think from the end, feel the answer now, and trust it is yours. Keep asking with faith, seeking with feeling, knocking with persistence. As Jesus said, ask and you shall receive, and these individuals applied Neville's teaching and showed us just how it happens. If this video resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe. It would help this beautiful community thrive. Thank you for watching Neville on the Bible. Keep imagining boldly and see the promise fulfilled in your life. See you in the next video with interpretation of another verse from the Bible through Neville's lens. Till then, goodbye and have a great day.